All right, so if you remember, we've talked about a few different things. We've talked about conditional statements, and hopefully we remember those are sentences that are in if-then form. If is the hypothesis, then is the conclusion, and then we practiced a bunch of just putting them into those if-then forms. Then yesterday we talked about all of these different types of things we can do with them, where we can negate things. We do the converse where we switch, inverse where we negate, and the contrapositive where we do both. And we talked about several examples with all of those. Today, we're going to add to that a little bit, and we're going to talk about these biconditional statements. And a biconditional statement is a statement using the phrase if and only if in it. Now, what we do, a couple of things with that. It's only true when both the conditional and converse are true. So those have to both be true. So both the conditional and the converse have to be true if it's going to be a true statement here. So now I look here. It says write the converse of each statement. If the converse is also true, combine the statement into a true biconditional. So what I'm going to do here is I've got this statement: if an angle measures between greater than 0 and less than 90, then it is acute. The converse, remember, is if an angle is acute, then it is greater than 90 or greater than 0 and less than 90. And that's the converse. And that's true if an angle is acute, bigger than 90, or bigger than 0, less than 90. So that means that the biconditional would say an angle is acute if and only if it is greater than 90 or greater than 0 and less than 90. It's running out of room there. That's how that always goes. Okay. I'm going to skip part B for a minute, but I'm going to come down here to C. And what I'll say on C, the converse, if a number is rational, then it is an integer. Now, when I do this, now reminding of rational numbers, any number that can be a fraction or a decimal that terminates or repeats, that's what a rational is. And integers, Well, integers are the nice numbers. They're things like -2 and -1 and 0 and 1 and 2 and on and on. This is a false statement. Since there's a false statement, what that means is there is no biconditional. So up here we had a true one. Here we have a false one. It's in between. This one here, part B, the converse. If two angles have a sum of 90, then they are complementary. Now, we haven't talked about that yet in here, but you probably have before, and we're going to talk about that next week. But that is a true statement. If two angles add to 90, they are called complementary. That means I can do the biconditional. It says two angles are complementary if and only if. That if and only if always goes in the middle. They add to 90 degrees. Now, I changed up the words there a little bit, and that's perfectly fine to do. So watch for that. Down here on example 4, write the biconditional as a conditional statement and its converse. Well, two angles are adjacent if and only if they share a common vertex and a common side. The conditional, if two angles are adjacent, then they share a common vertex and a common side. The converse, just like what we did yesterday, I just take this and flip that around. So if two angles share a common vertex and a common side, then they are adjacent. That's just how we do that. Same thing as yesterday where I just take those and flip them around. I would say pause for a moment, try these two out, then come back and check to make sure you did them right. Welcome back. For part B, this is just the same as we did up here on part B. It's the exact same thing. So we should have our first statement be exactly the same as it is up there. So if two angles are complementary, then they have a sum of 90 degrees. The converse, if two angles have a sum of 90, then they are complementary. And part C, conditional. If I graduate from high school, then I finish all the requirements. And the converse, if I finish all the requirements. Then I graduate high school. So it's really kind of just a lot of practice still with what we have been doing. It's just back up here. It's this if and only if, and that if and only if always goes in the center of the sentence. Don't try to put that at the beginning or at the end. Make sure that that goes in the center of the sentence.